Hi all, Karen Alari here today. I just want to do a little video and talk to you about using Photoshop to crop and compose your photograph to paint from. So what you're going to do is, of course, pull your photograph up onto your screen. I'm using Photoshop Elements, and that's sort of the smaller version of Photoshop, and I'm using it in the expert mode. So what we're going to be using today is the crop tool, and you're going to find this crop tool over here in this little box, and when you click on that it brings up these details down here that you can use and modify your cropping tool. And I'm going to make this painting, which is kind of tall, long and skinny at this point, into a 9 by 12 painting. So I've typed 9 by 12 into these boxes. Now you can type in whatever ratio you're using, whether it be an 18 by 24 or 16 by 20, whatever you want to use to make it the same size as your canvas. The other thing that you can change is your grid lines here. I'm using this rule of thirds grid line, and what that does is once I set up my box by clicking and dragging, this is going to open a cropping box that I can now adjust by clicking and dragging the corners and clicking and moving. I can adjust my composition however I want it. And it has on it right now a rule of thirds grid. I can also change this to an all-over grid, and I can change it to a golden ratio grid. And you'll notice when I changed it to that grid, it changed the dimensions of the crop because it has to go specifically within this golden ratio type thing. So I'm going to go back to the rule of thirds and resize my size here again, because this is what I use on my painting. I'll draw this grid directly onto my canvas in the same ratio, thirds, and then I can use it as a drawing tool to help me get my image onto my canvas. So now I'm going to decide where I want to put my box and how I want to crop my photo to give me the best composition. One simple rule of thumb is to put your focal point in the intersection of one of these boxes, of one of these thirds lines. Okay, so you could put it here, you could move it to here, so my bridge being my focal point, and those are all going to give you a different painting with a different focus. I don't have much sky in this photo, and I'm more interested in these interesting trees than I am the sky, so I'm going to use this area here. I could move it over to here, but I'm more interested in these yellow trees and these interesting branches here. I also want to get as much of the height of this photo as I can because I like all these leaves and the colors. So I'm which is in the thirds. And there you have it. Now I can click on my little check box, and I've cropped it to a 9 by 12. It's too small for me to see now, so I'm going to go into View and Fit on Screen to bring it up to a size that I can work with. So now I'm just going to recheck and make sure that I like that composition, which I do. If I didn't, I could go up to the Edit button and I could undo my crop and it would put me right back to where I was. But I'm happy with this now, so I will keep this crop, and I'm pretty much ready to paint from here. The last thing that I can do, I'm going to minimize this crop box, and I'm going to make it as large on the screen as I can to paint from. Now I have my rulers set up here, and they now go to 12 inches by 9 inches. And something that I like to do is make this inch on the screen exactly an actual 1 inch. That way I can use my ruler, hold it up to the screen, and I can get a corresponding size. For example, if I want to know in real inches how wide this is, if my ruler is accurate, I can just hold my ruler up here. So what I do is I go to my minimize, maximize, but I don't, and I'm going to leave it that way, and then I'm going to use this zoom button. You see? That changes the size of my grid up at the top. And I'm going to hold the screen. I'm going to resize it until this inch is an actual inch on my ruler. And it is there at this point. So now I'm going to minimize this box, make sure I have it. You can't now change the ratio. You can't go to view and fit on screen because it will change this ratio again. And I want to keep this inch on the screen an actual inch. Now if you're doing, say, an 18 by 24 or something that's larger than your video monitor, you can still do this, but a lot of the painting will be off the screen and you'll just have to use your arrows to move around on the screen if you want to do it that way. At this point, I would get my crop tool back and I would minimize this so it's out of the way and then put my grid back onto my painting. That way, now I'm all set up to paint and I can have this up on my monitor. I can use my physical ruler to measure areas where I get into trouble and need to know exactly how wide that is or how tall that is. Grid line placement and drawing. So if you are not working from your monitor, but you are now going to print this out and use it as a photo to this, it would end up probably not in the exact ratio unless you're doing maybe an 8 by 10. So you would have to then draw these grid lines onto your photograph using a marker or a pen. You can also put the photograph inside like a sheet protector, a clear plastic sheet protector you'd use in a binder, or tape it to a transparency sheet like you would use in an over, and then stick if you don't want to mess up your photo. So the last thing that I would also do, I'm going to, don't just bring this back up, is I would save this version into a file that you know where it is, and then I would make another version, do a file, save as, and make a black and white version. Now when I go to black and white, I use enhance, and I don't use this convert to black and white tool because it seems to get rid of a lot of the shades. It simplifies the values into to less value range than I like. So instead, I go to adjust color and, sorry, my cat just walked across my clicker. I go to adjust color and remove color. And that gives me a nice black and white value version to work from. And I would go ahead and print this out as well, or I would use it from my screen. I always use this black and white version when I'm doing my initial block in on my painting to make sure I first nail these values. And having it on the screen is really helpful at this point because I can also use my eyedropper tool, and I can then drop it in different areas and really see where the values are. So as you can see, these are very dark and my mid darks and my lights, but that's going on to a whole nother video, which I will probably do pretty soon. So I hope this helped you in terms of using Photoshop as a tool to crop and compose photo and get it ready to paint from. Thanks a lot for listening today, and I will be talking with you soon. Bye-bye.